She was an alien huntress chained to the rocks. I was her only hope. The storm came suddenly. Dark clouds rolled across the jagged sky of planet Kareth, and the wind screamed like wild beasts over the cliffs. Lightning split the horizon, casting sharp shadows across the rocky landscape. The human scout, Kale, pulled his jacket tighter, gripping the straps of his pack. He had traveled far from Earth, following faint distress signals that made no sense. He was not sure what he would find, but something about those signals made him uneasy, yet unable to stop. He moved carefully over the uneven rocks. Each step had to be precise. One false move could send him tumbling into the deep chasms below. Kale had survived harsh worlds before, but Kareth had a strange, dangerous beauty. The planet's surface was jagged, harsh, and unforgiving. Kale knew he would need every ounce of his skill to survive this place, and to find whatever, or whoever, was sending the signals. Then he saw her. She hung suspended against the cliff face, chained by glowing energy cuffs that burned faintly in the dim light. Her body was strong, lithe, and covered in scars that told the story of countless battles. Her long, silvery hair whipped in the wind, and her golden eyes glinted like knives in the storm. Even chained, she radiated power, a hunter's energy that made Kale's chest tighten. She was an alien unlike anything he had seen before, but she was clearly in pain and in danger. Kale's heart beat faster. He had heard legends of the huntresses of Kareth, warriors who could track prey across entire planets and fight creatures no human could survive. But here she was bound, weakened, and trapped. The thought of her vulnerability made him tense. He knew he had to act carefully. One wrong move could end both their lives. "Hey," he called, trying to catch her attention. "I'm here to help." The huntress's eyes narrowed. She spat at him, the gesture fierce even though her arms were bound. "I don't need your help, human," she said, her voice like steel against the wind. "Leave me or you will die with me." Kale took a slow step closer, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I'm not leaving. I saw your chains. I can get you out." She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that cut through the storm. "Chains do not fall for humans. You are brave or foolish, perhaps both, but even your cleverness cannot undo what binds me." Kale ignored her warning. His experience had taught him that courage and action mattered more than fear. He scanned the chains, noting the way the glowing cuffs attached to the jagged rocks. They pulsed with alien energy, strange and unfamiliar, but Kale's mind raced. He had tools and he had human ingenuity. That had saved him countless times before. He would try now. "Do you trust me?" he asked. Her golden eyes locked on his. "Trust is for the living. You do not know me, human. You do not know what I am." "I only need to know you want to live," Kale said, stepping closer to examine the cuffs. The huntress studied him, her breathing heavy against the wind. She was beautiful, terrifying, and proud, but also wounded in ways that only a human could see. Her pride, her power, it was all trapped behind those glowing chains. Kale could almost feel her frustration, the rage at being restrained, and the disbelief that any human could even hope to help her. Kale crouched and inspected the cuffs. They were designed to resist normal force, built to hold even the strongest alien. But humans had a different kind of strength. Kale pulled out a small device from his pack, a compact energy disruptor designed for alien tech. He had never tested it on something like this, but he had to try. Carefully, he aimed the device at the nearest cuff. "Hold still," he muttered. The disruptor hummed, bright blue sparks flickering across the chain. The huntress tensed, every muscle in her body straining against her bonds. Kale felt a jolt of electricity from the device, and then the cuff loosened slightly. Her eyes widened. You could." "I'm trying," Kale said. "You need to be ready to move. As soon as this comes loose, you run." The huntress laughed again, softer this time. "I have never needed a human to free me. Perhaps it is fate, then." Kale did not smile. He had no time for fate. The storm was growing stronger. He worked quickly, adjusting the disruptor. Sparks flew, a loud crack echoed across the cliff, and then the cuff clicked. One hand was free. The huntress flexed her fingers, testing her strength. Cale held the device steady, sweat running down his face from effort and tension. The second cuff resisted longer, pulsing violently. He gritted his teeth. This one might trigger an alarm or worse, but he couldn't stop. Not now. Finally, with a bright flash, the second cuff released. The chains fell away, clattering against the rocks. The huntress leapt to her feet, moving with the grace of a predator. Cale stepped back instinctively as she spun, ready for attack, but her eyes were no longer hostile. They were wary, alert, and curious. "You did this," she said, her voice softer, almost a whisper. "You freed me." "I did," Cale replied. "Now we need to get out of here before someone finds us." She nodded. "Follow me." Even injured and chained only moments ago, she moved faster than Cale could believe. He sprinted to keep up, dodging jagged rocks and deep fissures. The storm whipped around them and lightning struck dangerously close. Cale's heart pounded, but he could not stop. He had promised to help her, and he would not break that promise. They reached a small ledge that offered some shelter from the wind. The huntress crouched, scanning the horizon with eyes that missed nothing. Cale gasped for breath, his body aching from running on uneven terrain. He had never met anyone like her, and the fear and respect he felt were almost equal. "I am Cale," he said. "And you?" "Zyra," she replied, the name sharp and elegant. "You have a human name, it suits you, Cale. It shows your kind is clever, but you are reckless to follow me here." "I could say the same," Cale said, smirking despite exhaustion. "You're a huntress. Why are you chained like prey?" Zyra's expression darkened. "I was betrayed. My clan, they wanted me dead. I cannot tell you everything yet. It is not safe." Cale nodded. "Then we will survive first. You tell me later." She studied him for a long moment, then finally nodded. Perhaps you are different from the others." The wind howled around them, carrying the distant cries of alien predators. Cale's senses sharpened. He could feel danger all around, and he knew the storm would not be the only threat. Zyra's enemies might still be nearby, watching, waiting. "I need to find shelter," Cale said. "We cannot survive the night exposed like this." Zyra's golden eyes scanned the jagged cliffs. "There is a cave. Dangerous creatures live there, but it will protect us from the storm." "We move now." Cale followed, trusting her instincts. She led the way through narrow passes, over sharp stones, and across deep fissures. The storm seemed to follow them, thunder crashing like the roar of some ancient beast. Every step was tense, every shadow a potential threat. Finally, they reached the mouth of a cave. Zyra signaled for Cale to stay quiet. Inside, the darkness was thick, but the walls offered protection from the rain and wind. Cale's eyes adjusted slowly, revealing strange markings etched into the stone, ancient symbols of the Huntress's people. Zyra's gaze lingered on them, a mixture of reverence and anger. "This cave is old," she said softly. "It belonged to my ancestors. It is safe for now." Cale dropped his pack and sank to the ground. His body was trembling from exertion and adrenaline. "We made it," he said, "but we are not safe yet." Zyra knelt beside him, her hands moving over the ancient symbols, her voice low and thoughtful. "No, they will come for me. They will hunt me again, but perhaps you can help me, human. Perhaps you are not like the others." Cale looked at her. She was fierce, proud, and wounded, but alive. She needed him, and he had promised to help. "I will help you," he said firmly, "no matter what it takes." Zyra's eyes softened slightly. "Then perhaps there is hope." The storm raged outside, but inside the cave, a fragile bond formed. Two very different beings, human and alien huntress, were now tied together by survival, trust, and a flicker of something more, something neither fully understood. Cale knew the night would be long. Danger still lingered, both from the storm and from those who wanted Zyra dead. But he also knew one thing: he would not fail her. Humans were clever, adaptable, and relentless when it mattered, and Zyra, fierce and proud, might yet teach him things no human had ever known. Outside, lightning illuminated the jagged cliffs again. Somewhere hidden in the shadows, enemies watched. But for now, Kale and Zyra had a brief moment of peace, a chance to catch their breath and a bond that would shape the trials to come. Tomorrow they would have to fight. Tomorrow, the real test of trust and skill would begin. But tonight, they survived. And that survival was enough to spark hope. The night on planet Kareth was darker than Kale had imagined. The storm had passed, leaving only the bitter wind and the sharp scent of wet stone. Lightning still flashed occasionally, and distant echoes of thunder reminded him that the planet was alive with danger. The cave offered some protection, but Kale knew it was only temporary. The real threat had not yet shown itself. Zyra's enemies were still out there, waiting, watching. Kale stirred the small fire he had made, keeping it low so as not to reveal their position. Zyra sat across from him, her golden eyes scanning the dark cave walls. Her long hair, still damp from the storm, fell across her face. She flexed her fingers, testing her strength after the long ordeal with the chains. "You are quiet," Zyra said. "Humans are usually loud, boastful, or afraid. You are something different." Kale shrugged, poking at the fire. "I've learned that quiet keeps you alive, and sometimes listening is better than talking." Zyra tilted her head, studying him. "Perhaps your kind has something useful after all. I would have expected you to flee when you saw me chained." "Most humans do not survive fear well." "I don't flee," Kale said simply. "I solve problems." Zyra's lips curved into a faint smile. It was the first sign of softness Kale had seen from her. "Then we shall see if your cleverness can match my strength." The sound of distant movement made both of them freeze. Shadows danced along the cave entrance. Kale's instincts kicked in. He grabbed his compact blaster, a sleek weapon that humans had designed for alien encounters. Zyra, even unarmed, moved with a hunter's grace, her eyes sharp and alert. "They are close," she said, her voice low. "They want me alive or dead. Either way, they will not leave us alone." Kale nodded. "Then we need a plan." He had spent years studying alien worlds. He knew that brute force rarely won against creatures designed to hunt and kill. Strategy, traps, and clever thinking often mattered more than strength. Kale scanned the rocky terrain outside the cave, imagining the paths, the cliffs, and possible hiding spots. "We can use the terrain," he said. "I know humans are not as strong as your kind, but we can outsmart them. We need to move quietly, stay low, and make them think we are gone when we are not." Zyra considered his words. "You think you can outsmart alien hunters?" "I have to try," Kale said, "and you have to trust me." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she tested her limbs, her muscles coiling like a spring ready to strike. Perhaps I will try your plan, but if it fails, human, you will die first." Kale's lips twitched. He had expected her warning. "I'm used to danger," he said. "I'll survive, don't worry about me." The next hour was tense. Kale and Zyra prepared for movement. He set small traps, simple devices that would alert them to approaching enemies. He arranged rocks and sticks to create false trails and confuse anyone who tried to follow. Zyra observed silently, occasionally nodding in approval at his clever setups. Finally, Kale whispered, "We move now." They slipped from the cave, moving low and fast. Zyra led the way, her senses sharper than Kale's, her steps precise on the jagged rocks. Kale followed closely, relying on his devices and human intuition to detect hidden dangers. Soon they encountered the first guards, alien sentries, large and armored with sharp claws and keen eyes. Kale held his breath. One wrong move, one sound, and they would be spotted. Zyra crouched beside him, her presence a shield and a warning. "Follow my lead," she whispered. The Huntress sprang forward, fast as a striking snake. She moved with precision, knocking one guard unconscious before it could react. Kale watched, amazed at her speed and power. Then he used his disruptor to disable the second guard's energy shield. The alien stumbled, confused, and Kale pushed him into a narrow crevice, trapping him temporarily. Zyra glanced at him, her golden eyes narrowing. "Not bad, human," she said. Kale allowed himself a small smile, but they didn't stop. More guards approached, drawn by the noises of the struggle. Kale and Zyra moved quickly, their movements synchronized despite being strangers only a few hours before. "This way," Zyra hissed, leading him toward a hidden passage she had noticed from the cliffside. The passage was narrow and dark, barely wide enough for Kale to follow. He stumbled a few times, but Zyra's hand guided him. "Careful," she warned. "One false step and you fall into the chasm." The wind howled outside, almost as if the planet itself wanted to test their resolve. Kale's heart pounded. He had faced dangers before, but the combination of alien hunters, deadly cliffs, and an injured yet terrifyingly strong ally was unlike anything he had experienced. They reached a small plateau, hidden from the main paths. Kale took a moment to breathe, scanning the area. He could see the alien guards regrouping below, confused and searching. His devices had created enough false signals to buy them time, but not much. "We need to keep moving," Zyra said. "They will not give up." Kale nodded, adjusting his pack. "I have an idea, follow me." He led her to a series of rocky overhangs, with careful placement of small explosives, designed to cause rockfalls but not harm them. They created barriers behind them. The rocks tumbled down, blocking the pursuers' path. Kale and Zyra moved quickly, taking advantage of every opportunity the terrain offered. As they ran, Zyra spoke quietly, almost to herself. "You're kind humans, you are clever, stronger than you appear, and bold." "I underestimated you," Kale glanced at her. "I'm glad you're starting to trust me. We'll need that trust." She didn't reply immediately. Instead, her focus was on the path ahead. Then suddenly, a roar echoed from below. A massive creature, a predator native to Kareth, emerged from the shadows. Its eyes glowed red and its claws could tear through rock. Zyra tensed, ready to strike. "Stay behind me," she ordered. Kale's mind raced. There was no time to run. He noticed a narrow crevice above the predator. "Zyra, we can climb, follow me." Using her agility, Zyra leapt with Kale to the crevice, barely avoiding the predator's snapping jaws. They climbed up the rocky wall, hearts pounding. The predator roared in frustration below but could not reach them. Kale slid into a small alcove at the top. Zyra followed, her breathing heavy but controlled. She looked at him, a hint of respect in her eyes. "You survive through wit as much as strength, human." "I can respect that." They rested briefly, catching their breath, but Kale knew it was temporary. More guards would come, and the storm of danger was far from over. "Do you have a safe place?" he asked. Zyra shook her head. "None, not anymore. My clan hunted me, my enemies follow me only, the wild gives temporary refuge." Kale considered their options. He could see a ridge in the distance, partially hidden by rocks. It could serve as a temporary hideout. "We go there. It's risky, but it's our best chance." They moved carefully, avoiding the main paths. Each step was tense. Kale's ears picked up the faint sound of alien voices echoing across the cliffs. Zyra's golden eyes scanned for traps. Together, they were beginning to understand each other's strengths, forming a partnership of survival. When they reached the ridge, Kale and Zyra crouched behind a boulder. The wind howled around them, but here, for a brief moment, they were safe. Kale glanced at her. "We made it this far. Tomorrow, we fight smarter, not just harder." Zyra nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "You are not like the others, human. Perhaps there is hope for you yet. If we survive the night, we may find a way to strike at those who chained me." Kale looked at the dark horizon. He had survived storms, alien predators, and impossible terrain, but this was different. This was survival with another being, someone fierce and proud, someone who had once been feared by the galaxy. And now that fear had a new dimension: trust. The night stretched long. Kale and Zyra huddled behind the rocks, sharing quiet conversation and small preparations. Kale learned about Zyra's Huntress training, her clan's code, and the betrayal that had left her chained. Zyra learned about human resilience, ingenuity, and the strange stubbornness that made Kale keep fighting when others would have fled. Outside, the sounds of alien hunters echoed faintly. Inside, the firelight flickered over their faces. Two very different beings, human and alien, were bound together by survival, respect, and a fragile trust that neither fully understood. Kale knew the night would end, but the next day would bring challenges even greater than the storm. The alien guards would not rest. Zyra's enemies would not stop hunting. And yet he also knew something crucial. Together they had a chance, not just to survive, but to fight back, to defy the odds, and to prove that humans, clever and relentless, could stand against even the most fearsome alien forces. And that hope, that spark of defiance, was enough to keep him moving forward. The first rays of Kareth's twin suns cut through the horizon, turning the jagged cliffs into a sea of gold and crimson. Kale awoke first, shivering from the cold night air. He glanced at Zyra, who was still resting, her eyes closed but her muscles tense even in sleep. She was always ready for a fight, always alert, even when she appeared vulnerable. Kale carefully checked their temporary shelter, a small alcove tucked between sharp rocks. He had managed to secure it with some makeshift barricades from broken stones and small sensors from his pack. He knew the alien hunters were still nearby, possibly regrouping, and every moment counted. "Kale!" Zyra's voice broke the silence. She was sitting up now, her golden eyes scanning the cliffs. "Do you really intend to follow me into their territory? Do you understand the danger?" Kale stood and stretched. "I've faced danger before," he said, "and I've learned something important: you never run alone. You survive better with someone watching your back." Zyra's lips curved in a faint, approving smile. "You are stubborn, perhaps foolishly so, yet stubbornness is sometimes strength." Kale smiled, feeling a small flicker of relief. He knew he needed her trust, not just to survive, but to truly help her escape the clutches of her enemies. "Then let's earn that trust," he said, "starting with your gear." Zyra's golden eyes narrowed. "My gear? I am a huntress. I do not require a human to fix what is mine." "I know," Kale replied calmly, kneeling beside his pack. "But your weapons are damaged. If we are going to survive, I need to make sure we are ready for anything." She studied him for a moment, then reluctantly handed over her plasma bow. Its edges were scorched from the storm, and several components were misaligned from her struggle with the chains. Kale's hands worked quickly, carefully replacing damaged parts, recalibrating the weapon, and even improving the trigger mechanism. Zyra watched silently, impressed despite herself. "You are skilled," she said. "Humans are clever in ways I did not expect." "I've had to be," Kale replied. "Your life depends on it, and mine too." Once her bow was repaired, Kale worked on a small blade she had worn at her hip. Its energy edge flickered weakly, but a few adjustments restored its sharpness. Zyra tested it with a few quick strikes, moving fluidly despite her fatigue. "Better," she said, nodding. "You may survive this world after all." Kale allowed himself a small grin. "Good. Now let's talk strategy." Zyra moved to a rock ledge overlooking the valley below. "They are many," she said, pointing toward the distant cliffs. "My former clan, those who betrayed me, are well armed and they have scouts everywhere. They do not expect humans to intervene, but they will not hesitate to kill." Kale crouched beside her. "Then we use that," he said. "They won't expect clever traps, improvisation, or unexpected teamwork. That's where humans have an edge. We may not match them in raw strength, but we can outthink them." Zyra looked at him, eyes glinting. "You are bold, human. Boldness can be dangerous or powerful." Kale smiled. "I'll take powerful." They spent the day observing the valley below, noting patrol patterns and weak points. Kale's human instincts, honed by survival on multiple worlds, allowed him to predict the alien patrol's movements. Zyra added her knowledge of alien tactics, pointing out traps, ambush points, and hidden hazards. Together, they created a plan that blended human ingenuity and alien experience. By evening, the sun had set again, painting the sky in red and purple. Kale and Zyra had prepared small traps, triggered rocks, energy pulse devices, and false tracks designed to confuse pursuers. They tested the mechanisms, ensuring that each would work precisely when needed. "You are thorough," Zyra said quietly, watching him adjust a pulse trap. "I see now why humans can survive where others fail. You think ahead even when danger is close." Kale nodded. "It's necessary. I want us both to survive this." For the first time, Zyra seemed to relax. She offered Kale a small smile. "Perhaps I misjudged you, human. Perhaps you are worthy of trust." Kale felt a surge of satisfaction, but he didn't let himself celebrate. The Huntress's enemies were still out there, and any misstep could cost them both their lives. Night fell, and the alien sky shimmered with distant stars and strange auroras. Kale and Zyra settled near a small fire, keeping low to avoid detection. Kale prepared a simple meal from his rations, offering some to Zyra. She accepted it silently, a small gesture of trust. "Tell me," Kale said cautiously, "why did they chain you? What did you do to deserve this?" Zyra's gaze turned distant. "I was the best hunter of my clan. I protected them, hunted for them, and upheld their laws. But I refused to kill one of our own for political reasons. They saw my defiance as betrayal. And so they left me to die chained on the cliffs." Kale listened, understanding the weight of her words. Betrayal cut deeper than any wound, he knew. "Then we'll make sure you survive," he said firmly. "We'll turn the tables on them." Zyra studied him, a flicker of admiration in her eyes. "You are relentless, human. Perhaps that is why I survived this long. Someone had to be relentless. And now you are that someone." Kale smiled. "Relentless is what humans do best." The rest of the night was spent planning their next move. Kale suggested they lure a small patrol into a trap to test their tactics. Zyra agreed, noting that such a move would show them which enemies were most dangerous and give them insight into the terrain. When the first patrol appeared, Kale and Zyra were ready. Rocks fell, alarms misfired, and the patrol became confused. Zyra struck swiftly, disabling 2 guards silently. Kale used his disruptor to disable energy shields on another, creating a temporary advantage. The patrol scattered, leaving Kale and Zyra unscathed. "You learn fast," Zyra said, her voice low. "I see now that humans can fight smart, not just with weapons but with wit." "I learned from the best," Kale replied, gesturing to her. As they returned to their temporary hideout, Zyra spoke more openly than she had before. "I have never had a human fight alongside me. Always others of my kind who are strong, but not clever in the ways of survival. You surprise me." Kale shrugged, trying to hide the pride rising in his chest. "Surprise can be useful, and sometimes survival requires trust, even with someone you barely know." Zyra nodded slowly. "Trust, yes. Perhaps I can learn that from you, human." The night ended with the faint glow of Kareth's twin moons casting long shadows across the cliffs. Kale and Zyra, human and Huntress, were slowly building a fragile bond. Trust, respect, and shared survival were binding them together. But even as they rested, Kale knew the morning would bring new challenges. The patrols would come again, and the Huntress's enemies were clever and merciless. They would need every ounce of strength, skill, and cunning to survive, and to finally strike back. Kale settled against the rock, watching Zyra clean and repair her weapons. He felt a sense of determination he had never known. The humans' resilience, ingenuity, and refusal to give up would be the edge they needed, and Zyra, fierce and proud, was beginning to trust him. Together they could face the galaxy's deadliest hunters. Together they might even win. And Kale knew one thing for certain: he would not fail her. Not now. Not ever. The morning on planet Kareth was cold and sharp. Twin suns rose over the jagged cliffs, casting long shadows across the rocky valley. Kale and Zyra crouched behind a ridge, surveying the enemy stronghold below. The sprawling compound of jagged metal and stone seemed impossible to assault, but Kale's mind was already calculating every angle. Human ingenuity had survived worse odds, and today they would prove it. Zyra's golden eyes scanned the compound. My former clan has fortified this place well. They do not expect a human to lead an attack, but they will be ready for hunters of my kind. Kale nodded. Good, we will use that. They underestimate us. They think strength alone is enough. But we have something stronger: brains, strategy, and the element of surprise. Zyra studied him. You speak boldly, human. Let us hope your courage is not your undoing. Together, they descended the ridge slowly, careful not to reveal their position. Kale carried a small pack of human-made gadgets: EMP devices, energy disruptors, smoke grenades, and traps designed to confuse or disable alien technology. Zyra carried her plasma bow, energy blade, and a confidence born of years of lethal experience. The first challenge came almost immediately: a patrol of alien sentries. Zyra signaled, pointing to a narrow ledge where the patrol would pass. Kale set a small tripwire connected to a smoke device. Now, Zyra whispered. The patrol stepped into the trap. A cloud of dense smoke erupted, blinding them temporarily. Kale activated his disruptor, sending pulses that jammed their communications. Confused, the aliens stumbled, while Zyra struck silently, her energy blade taking down one sentry with precision. Kale tackled another into a wall, immobilizing him without bloodshed. Zyra glanced at him, a flicker of respect in her eyes. Clever. Not just brave, but clever. Kale smiled faintly. Humans survive because we think ahead. Once the patrol was neutralized, they moved closer to the main compound. Kale studied the walls: energy barriers, guard towers, and automated turrets. It looked impossible to breach, yet Kale already had a plan. We need to disable the energy shields first, he said. Once the defenses are down, we create confusion. You strike at the leaders and I will handle their tech. Zyra raised an eyebrow. And you expect to succeed against many hunters and advanced technology? Yes, Kale said, because humans can adapt. We improvise. And we do not give up. Night was approaching, the perfect cover for their strike. Kale planted small EMP devices along the perimeter while Zyra provided lookout from higher ground. The devices hummed faintly, waiting for the exact moment. When the suns dipped below the horizon, they activated the EMPs. The energy barriers flickered and died, and automated turrets froze mid-spin. Zyra grinned, feeling her strength return as the guards' advantage melted away. This is our chance, she said. They moved swiftly. Zyra's agility and Kale's gadgets allowed them to silently bypass the outer walls. Inside, the compound was a maze of corridors and chambers. Alien guards patrolled regularly, but Kale's disruptor confused their sensors, making them hesitate. Zyra took down anyone who got too close, her movements lethal and precise. Finally, they reached the central chamber. Here, Zyra's enemies were gathered, leaders of her former clan, heavily armored and armed with energy weapons. They froze as the Huntress and human entered. You dare enter my domain, one of the leaders growled. Zyra stepped forward, her energy blade glowing. I am not yours to command. You tried to kill me. Today, you answer for that. Kale raised his disruptor, targeting the chamber's defense systems. Lights flickered, energy shields collapsed, and alarms went silent. The leaders glared at him, realizing too late that a human had outsmarted them. Clever human, one snarled. You interfere where you do not belong. I belong wherever it matters, Kale replied calmly. And right now, it matters here. The battle began. Zyra moved like a predator, fast and deadly. Kale used gadgets to disable guards and create barriers. Smoke, EMP pulses, and quick thinking allowed them to divide and confuse the enemy. Despite being outnumbered, they had the advantage of surprise, speed, and teamwork. Zyra ducked under a swinging energy blade. countering with a precise strike that disarmed one of her former allies. Kale tossed a small energy grenade into a corridor, cutting off reinforcements. Their actions were synchronized, unspoken understanding growing with every movement. One of the leaders lunged at Kale, a massive alien with claws and strength far beyond a human's. Kale sidestepped, barely avoiding the attack, and triggered a pulse that disabled the alien's armor momentarily. Zyra struck from above, her blade slicing through the distracted enemy, ending the threat instantly. The remaining guards began to retreat, realizing the humans' unexpected effectiveness. Kale and Zyra chased them through the corridors, clearing traps and obstacles along the way. Every step demonstrated that humans could match aliens not just in courage, but in strategy, adaptability, and teamwork. Finally, they confronted the main leader, a towering figure with energy armor crackling across his chest. Zyra faced him, her eyes glowing with anger and determination. Kale readied his disruptor, calculating the perfect moment to strike. "You betrayed your kind," Zyra hissed, circling the leader. "Now you will pay." The leader lunged. Zyra dodged, spinning and striking with her blade. Kale fired his disruptor, sending pulses that overloaded the leader's armor. Sparks flew, and the alien staggered, vulnerable. Zyra moved in, her energy blade flashing, and struck decisively. The leader collapsed, defeated, the remaining guards surrendering or fleeing. Kale watched, amazed at the combination of her skill and his human ingenuity. Together, they had overcome impossible odds. With the compound cleared, Zyra moved to free other prisoners. She worked quickly, disabling energy cuffs and offering aid to those who had been held captive. Kale assisted, using his gadgets to remove complex locks and traps. Each life they saved strengthened the bond between human and Huntress. Finally, they stood at the top of the central chamber, looking out over the compound. Zyra's eyes glinted with pride and relief. "We did it," she said. "I feared this day would never come." Kale smiled. "Humans survive by refusing to quit, and we do not leave anyone behind." She studied him, her gaze intense. "You are not like the others. You are clever, relentless, and worthy. I trusted you when I should have doubted. You saved more than me today, human. You saved lives." Kale shrugged, feeling the exhaustion of the battle but also a deep satisfaction. "We did it together. That's what matters." The compound was quiet now, the enemies defeated and the prisoners safe. Kale and Zyra had proven something important. Humans could survive, outsmart, and triumph even when the odds seemed impossible. Zyra turned to him, her expression unreadable for a moment. "Tomorrow we plan our next move. My enemies will not rest, and this planet is far from safe." "But today we have hope," Kale nodded. "Hope is everything, and together we are stronger than anyone expects." Outside, the twin suns set, casting long shadows across the cliffs. Kale and Zyra stood side by side, human and Huntress, victorious for now. But both knew the challenges were far from over. The galaxy was full of danger, betrayal, and cunning enemies. Yet in this moment they had proven something that would carry them forward. That humans, clever and resourceful, could change the tide of even the most impossible battle. And Zyra, fierce and proud, now saw humans not as weak creatures, but as allies capable of greatness. The night came, quiet for the first time in days. Kale and Zyra rested, but their minds were already planning for tomorrow. The galaxy was dangerous, but they had survived together. And that was just the beginning.